Use your powers for evil.
Evil? Your evil is mine.
To Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs, ready to tackle the next 100 episodes with my partner in time and everybody's favorite, Jesse Jackson.
Hey, Charles. This is kind of the Next Stop Everywhere Eve episode.
Yes.
Because this is the episode before we talk about the Christmas special. And yes. I am so ready for the Christmas special. But we got to talk about this episode first. We get to talk about this episode. It's a great episode to discuss. But I am anxious for the Christmas special.
Yes, so am I. Obviously, right now it is December 18th, 2017. We still have 7 days to go, one whole week before the Doctor Who Christmas special. So you'll have to wait just like we will. For
yes.
that. But by now, hopefully you've seen it.
Right.
Because you're probably, by the time this episode uploads, that you've probably have watched it. But so just kind of like be a little patient with us and looking forward to talking about that. But this episode that we're going to talk about today, episode 101, is the 10th Planet. And I thought this would be a great episode to talk about at this point because having watched An Adventure in Space and Time last time, that with the
David Bradley.
David Bradley, thank you. Yes, yeah. David Bradley playing the first Doctor. Well, William Hartnell in that story, and he's going to be playing the first Doctor in Twice Upon a Time, the Christmas special. But that story, Twice Upon a Time, apparently kind of ties in with this story, The 10th Planet, which is William Hartnell's last story as the first Doctor. Because apparently, as the Doctor is heading back to the TARDIS, ready to regenerate, that's going to be when he meets the 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi. And that will kind of like do a little sidetrack into Twice Upon a Time, and then come right back for the regeneration, presumably, at the end of this story, the 10th Planet. So,
yeah.
I'm looking forward to talking about this one with you.
Yeah, Charles, you have seen this before. I had not. And I got a little jolt of happiness when, during the first chapter, the Doctor's about to go outside and they put on a cloak and his hat. And I go, hey, that's what he's wearing in the trailer. And I was like, I see what it's there.
Yeah. So you kind of get why I wanted to do this story at this moment, hopefully.
Absolutely.
So, so This is something I'm looking forward to talking about. Now, I know that you had trouble watching this one because you watched it via YouTube. So, did you get to watch the fourth chapter in the animated form?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Because they animated it for the DVD release, and I thought they did a really great job with the animation compared to other efforts.
It really did. My only frustration. Well, a couple frustrations. One, Charles, if you're going to advertise lost episodes of William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton, you would think the 10th planet would be on that. I bought that box set. I opened it up on Saturday morning, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, it's not on this.
Yeah, and then I get a instant message on Facebook.
Yeah,
it's not on the lost episode set.
yes.
And I'm like, well, that's because they completed it with an animated episode and they gave it an official DVD release.
Yes.
So Jesse's like, well, I'm watching it on YouTube. So I was like, okay,
yes.
as long as you get the whole thing.
I did. The other frustration is as I was watching it, like it felt like every 6 minutes there was a commercial break. So it didn't flow very well.
Right.
But it...
I guess they're trying to...
Yeah.
They want you to buy that YouTube Red without the commercials. The premium service.
Yeah. Right.
So,
but it was good.
Yeah. So if you get the chance to get the DVD, I highly recommend it. I think you'll enjoy it more that way.
Okay.
But at least you got to watch it, so you know what happens, and hopefully you feel comfortable talking about it with me.
Yes, I do.
All right. So let's dive right in because we have a lot of feedback this week, so I want to get to that.
Okay.
So
good.
let's get moving. So this is The 10th Planet, written by Kit Pedler and Jerry Davis, the creators of the Cybermen, because obviously this is their very first story, and directed by Derek Martinus. And this was the second serial from season 4 in 1966. So this means that they were only 2 episodes in to the Doctor Who's 4th season when they did the switch from William Hartnell to Patrick Troughton, who finished out the season and then went on to do 2 more on top of it. And this is obviously starring William Hartnell in his final story, Michael Craze as Ben, and Anneke Wills, who plays Polly. So they're the First Doctor's last companions. And I'm kind of curious to getting your thoughts on how this particular TARDIS team interacts. Now, I know you've seen Ben and Polly before because we talked about The Power of the Daleks, which was animated. But here you guys should get to see them in an actual story that was televised.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed with them.
Okay.
I actually was not. If I had watched this from the beginning, I would expect Doctor Who to be this way. But I am used to a modern Whovian experience where the Doctor is the main character.
Right.
The Doctor is the driver. He is the hero. And this is truly, I mean, there's a whole episode where he's sick and we don't see him. Now, I do realize in real life...
That's episode 3, yes.
Yeah. I realize in real life the actor,
William
Hartnell is ill.
Right.
But it seems a little weird. And we've watched some of the other episodes with, Hartnell, and he was not the main driver. The teachers were. They were the men of action.
Ian and Barbara,
Yes. So that's a little weird for me, and I'm...
to see the Doctor kind of take a back seat to the companions in the story.
Right.
Right.
I did notice your famous scene. Polly, can I make coffee?
Yeah.
Because I've got nothing else to do, and you're just shaking your head.
Welcome to the world of female companions in the 1960s.
Yeah. Overall,
yes.
I enjoyed the episode, but this definitely is not one of my favorites.
That's understandable.
Okay.
But and we'll get into that. So, first, before we get into our main topics, I want to do a quick rundown of the notable cast members in this. As always, Robert Beatty, who plays General Cutler, the very acerbic American general in this story who has the son who's an astronaut. Kind of like J. Jonah Jameson, if you're a Spider-Man fan, because his son is an astronaut, John Jameson. So he was in the movies 2001: A Space Odyssey, and he played the tanker captain in Superman 3, believe it or not.
Yes.
So if you're a Superman fan, thought you might find that a little interesting. I know you are, Jesse.
Absolutely.
Earl Cameron, who plays Williams in this story, he played a character named Pinder, who kind of helped James Bond in the movie Thunderball, and he played the Abbot in the TV miniseries version of Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere. And recently, he was in the movie Inception. So he's been acting quite a while. Go ahead.
And he looked very familiar to me.
Right.
He played a really good American accent. I guess he's from Canada. And a really good villain. I think one of the highlights of the episode, and I don't want to get too far into details, was his portrayal.
Okay.
Of his portrayal of the character.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So, and then we had John Brandon, who played an American sergeant, with no name, just the sergeant. He was in the movies Serpico and Scarface, both of which were Al Pacino movies. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then Steve Plitus, who played Wigner, one of the Snowcap base staff. He was in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. He was in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. So we have yet another Superman connection here. And most famously, he played the Doctor in the 1989 Batman movie. So as in probably the Doctor that worked on Jack Nicholson, the Joker's face. You see what I have to work with here, Mr. Napier.
Yes.
Yeah, that guy. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So.
Yeah, a very good cast.
Yeah, and so they obviously, a lot of them went on to bigger and better things than just a little BBC show by the name of Doctor Who. But I thought that was kind of interesting. All right,
absolutely.
At least I thought it was interesting. I hope you did too. All right, so let's dive right into our main topic. First topic I want to talk about. I'm going to change things up a little bit. I'm going to talk about you do not seem to take us seriously. And this is the Cybermen. And I thought I'd give them the kind of spotlight because this is their very first story. So this is where they have these big headlamp Cybermen helmets and the kind of socks over their faces that kind of, which we know from recent episodes, World Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls, they were used to basically cover the medical, like this plague that was the Mondasians were suffering, and then they were replacing themselves with cybernetic parts. But at this stage, this is like very early proto Cybermen, so they have like what looks like big accordions on their chest, and they're kind of walking around in these little jumpsuits with wires and tubes sticking everywhere. And I want to get your thoughts on the very first appearance of the Cybermen.
I can't do it. I enjoyed these very much, and
you can't do the sing-song voice?
Yes, not as much as
we are the Cybermen.
Yes, we are. We do not have emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
We do not feel any pain. I love them. I'm surprised how much I love them.
Yeah.
I think because they seemed a little more human.
Right.
Even though they said they had no emotions, they seemed to be a little more devious.
Right.
A little more. They negotiated. They had the discussion. I really do see why people loved seeing them, because they were really, really an interesting character. I also see why old-time fans were happy for them to come back.
Right.
I also like
because this is really the first time we see them in this version. Because right away in their second story, the Moon Base, in the Patrick Troughton era, they get a considerable makeover from this version. So this story is really until we had World Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls. This is only the really first time we get to see the original versions of the Cybermen.
And they were really, I like the origin story. I know that they've now had 2 or 3 origins.
Yeah.
But this one was well done, and I thought it was interesting. So, yeah, I like this a lot.
This is the one that counts for me as far as I'm concerned, because this was the original. So, yeah, I'm all about the Mondasian Cybermen.
Okay.
I just kind of like the idea that, okay, this race that's kind of like almost like a duplicate of Earth ends up getting this kind of plague and whatnot, and they turn to cybernetics as a way to survive. We will survive.
Yes.
And so like, thankfully, only in like a couple stories do they have that kind of sing-song voice before it gets more electronic. It's kind of interesting to see them, and I get where you're coming from, where these seem more human here. Because there's times where they act like they're annoyed with like the Doctor or Cutler, and just even though they try to say, "Oh, hey, we've purged ourselves from emotions," but not so much. I don't think. I think I think they still have more emotions than they would like to admit at this stage.
Yeah, it was really well done.
Okay. I'm glad you liked them. And obviously here we have Mondas, their home planet, which is introduced, of course. And their whole plan is just like, okay, we're going to take over the Earth, and our world's kind of going kaput, so we'd like to kind of set up shop here.
Yes.
But ultimately, of course, Mondas is destroyed, and in the process, it could rather conveniently takes out the Cybermen and deals with their threat by just like having them kind of melt down for no reason.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. Yeah. Did I miss the reason?
Nope. No. They just all of a sudden Mondas, breaks up, and that's the end of the Cybermen for some reason. So Yep, it's like, well, we couldn't figure out a way to get rid of them rather quickly enough. So that's how we got rid of them.
Absolutely.
But anything else about the Cybermen before we move on?
No, it was well done. I liked the, the radiation affecting them.
Right.
And the guys coming up with the idea of the power rod, the uranium rods, which looks so much like Homer Simpson holding it on the handles. It was just really well done. They were a good villain, and at times I can be tired of Cybermen and Daleks. So I was happy with this one.
Well, this probably made the Cybermen feel a little bit more fresh to you.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you don't see a lot of this type of Cybermen.
Right.
But I did a couple of things that kind of make me smile in this episode, or this story. Are like when the Cybermen kind of go around karate chopping people to knock them out, or just they press on somebody's forehead to knock them out, which I think is kind of funny. Now the other thing that I think is kind of great is like, okay, they take some of the Snowcap base members' fur coats, and they go back in, and apparently nobody notices until they take the fur coats off that, oh, it's the Cybermen, or like who are these guys? Like everybody's just like, oh, the fur coat disguise is like Clark Kent's glasses. It works perfectly.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, I do too. It's just kind of like the kind of kitschy '60s charm that I kind of dig.
Yes, I agree.
All right, let's move on to the second topic. Well, I could make some coffee or something. And that's, of course, as you mentioned, the quote from Polly, which I kind of like tend to refer to quite a bit because of how it kind of pretty much sums up rather succinctly how female companions were viewed back in the '60s. I think a lot of the time, far too much of the time. And this is obviously going to be Ben and Polly I want to talk about here. So what are your thoughts on Ben and Polly in this episode? I gather you're not a fan of them, but
Um,
what you did watch, what did you think?
they're very bland.
Right?
There is they're just a companion. I did not catch and it isn't just because it's an old episode and therefore the pacing's a little different.
Right.
Because I really love Jamie,
Right.
for Patrick Troughton. So I just didn't care for them because they didn't stand out in any way to me.
Okay.
Yeah, once again, this is the writing, it's not the acting. They're even though this is the fourth season, I'm sure they're trying to figure out what to do with the lead being a little bit, sick.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway,
This was like Ben and Polly's just third episode, third story.
okay.
So they have like two more before this one, and then they have like about I want to say six Troughton stories.
Okay.
So there are, and so I've seen more, obviously more than you from them.
Right.
So I get a little bit more out of them, and I'm kind of curious after Twice Upon a Time if
Yes.
this will help your appreciation a little. Now I get where you're coming from, where you think they're rather bland.
Yes.
But I think this story doesn't really serve them well. I don't think it's pretty indicative of them.
Okay.
Because Ben, he's essentially like he's his rank is able seaman in the British Royal Navy, and so but he's kind of like like a Cockney or like he's almost kind of like Jamie in the sense that he's kind of like, okay, I could get into a fight if I need to.
Okay.
He doesn't go around provoking them, but he's kind of a hothead a little bit. So he's kind of prone into getting in trouble. And Polly kind of offsets him because Polly's obviously the more mature, calm one. But she's also kind of like, she's a bit, she comes off like more of a model, at the time, a '60s model.
Okay.
And but she's essentially like the conscience, I think.
Okay.
To kind of offset, to balance, I guess, Hartnell's brusqueness a little bit. So, I think there's a little bit more there, but I agree
Okay.
there could be more.
Okay.
That just their characters, because of being victims of being '60s companions, were underserved, I would say.
Okay. Fair enough.
But Ben in this story, he does pretty much the heavy lifting because with
Yes.
Hartnell sidelined, he's essentially like brought in to kind of help, kind of sabotage the Z bomb, which Cutler goes off in this big, huge, just deranged. I don't want to say stereotypical army guy, but just he's that stereotypical army villain in that
Yes.
he's a little too quick to go to battle. He'd rather just nuke the Cybermen as opposed to just trying to reason with them and hopefully avoid battle. And I think but to be fair, he's probably more pushed on because of because of his son being in orbit, an astronaut, and trying to get back, and being kind of caught in the crossfire between Snowcap Base and the Cybermen.
Yeah, in fact, I think that it is, he's very selfish.
Right.
When he mentioned, we've got problems, or we've got challenges, or, and the number one is to get my son down. And then number 3 is save the earth, or something.
Right.
So yes, he comes across as a obsessed villain. And now that you mention the J. Jonah Jameson, there is that kind of connection of where Jonah was obsessed about his son.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and it's understandable because he's a father, and he's, obviously very proud of his astronaut son.
Sure.
The reason I bring up Cutler is because with Ben being actually from the military, he's a British naval able seaman, and he so I think Ben is probably, of the 3, the one that Cutler remotely respects because of that. He's kind of okay, well, why aren't you with your ship and whatnot? But he seems like Ben is the one he's going to listen to the most. Like with the doctor, he dismisses the doctor right out because the doctor's an old guy with long hippie hair. So
yes,
which is the doctor's like, oh, I don't like your tone, but it's like, well, I don't like your hair. So
yes,
and then with Polly, obviously she's a girl, so she's just all she's good for is coffee. So
yes, absolutely.
And just wants everybody to stay out of his way to let him bomb the Cybermen with the Z-bomb. But Ben sabotages this, and I think that's kind of the tipping point where Cutler stops trusting Ben as well.
Yes.
And just is okay, well, just lock him up with the old man, because with the doctor kind of being out of commission, kind of pretty much unconscious in a bunk somewhere.
Right.
He just tries to dismiss Ben, and as a result, Ben's able to kind of move out about the place a little easier because they think he's locked up with the doctor.
Yes.
So, all right. Anything else about Ben and Polly? What do you think about Ben and Polly's concern for the doctor in this story? That they're just kind of taken aback that all of a sudden he doesn't seem quite right.
Yeah, kind of a little bit of foreshadowing,
right?
And not subtle.
No,
I
don't think the story was very subtle at all, because it seemed like it felt very okay, we've got to make this work somehow because we got to write Hartnell out as fast as possible.
Yes, I agree with that. I'll save this, but I'll put a pin in it.
Right.
Him making the comment, oh, maybe this body of mine's getting a little wore out.
Right.
Wearing
a bit thin.
Yeah, that's it. Obviously they care about the doctor.
Right.
Though it's a little bit of a stretch, because this doctor isn't very likable at times, and so you're like, why do they care so much? Well,
at the beginning of the story, though, if you notice that they kind of are kind of having a good time. They're they're kind of talking about hey, make sure you're bundled up because it's snowing outside and whatnot. And the doctor's, Polly's concerned about the doctor being warm, and he's like, no, don't worry, my dear, I'm warm as toast.
Yes, and what I did get a kick out of is we're on Earth, maybe we can get back home.
Right.
And then it's 1986, which, of course, nothing is funnier, Charles, than seeing a show that was filmed in the 60s trying to show the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, this is basically what is the Ben's attempt at getting home, only to
Yes.
fail.
Nice.
You're welcome. So, but yeah, so close. Only 20 years off. So
Yes.
chances are they could have run into their future selves.
They could have.
So, but no such luck. But um, yeah. So, and you can see Polly, the kind of crestfallen look on Polly's face once Ben tells her that, oh, it's 1986, Duchess. So,
Yes.
all right. So let's move on to our third and final topic, and that's obviously going to be it's far from being all over, and this is the Doctor's regeneration, the final William Hartnell, the final story of the first Doctor, and I want to get your thoughts on this very first regeneration.
So, as we talked about, Charles, it was not very subtle.
Right.
Something was going up. I actually cheated and watched the next episode to see how they handle Patrick Troughton, and it was an animated episode again.
Well, that was the Power of the Daleks. Yeah, we've watched that. We've watched that. We've discussed that here. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember it. It was not that memorable.
It's the first Troughton story. I did not find it memorable.
It wasn't. I didn't remember. Now that you mentioned it, we do, right? They showed it on the screen, right? Yeah, BBC.
We saw it
yeah,
on BBC America. So
yeah. They just kind of, remember the Doctor said his body may be wearing thin? Maybe he gets a whole new body. Okay, that's truly going from you can't see me, listeners, from here to here, right? I mean, that's let me go. 1 + 1 = 27.
Well, you had to make some leaps of logic, but
don't get that. It was, I mean, it was okay. I certainly.
Did you at least find it interesting because it was the very first regeneration?
Yeah,
just,
but I
just gotta be like you're curious about what that one was like.
Yeah, I guess my issue is it is hard to. It is like the movie John Carter of Mars.
Okay.
I love that movie because I remember reading the John Carter books.
Right.
In the late 70s, and I knew that all the stuff that other people were going, this is so derivative, that it was actually one of the first things that did this. So it wasn't derivative; it's actually a source material. So I think the same thing. You're like, I'm going
because Edgar Rice Burroughs,
yes.
he innovated it. He was one of the OG science fiction writers. He was one of the original gangsters.
Yes, and so I'm going. It's kind of, okay.
Yeah.
I guess it's significant that, we're seeing but he didn't really get a significant line.
No.
He didn't get the, we didn't have the animation.
Well, that's kind of why, I chose, it's far from being all over, because I thought that was that at least would have been a good final line, as opposed to telling everybody, well, keep warm, which keep warm is the first Doctor's final words.
Yeah.
If you've watched the story, so not exactly the most memorable exit.
Right.
But I think what they were going for was that the Doctor was kind of out of it.
Yes, I think so.
And because they show him, he just kind of wanders off after being freed by Ben from the Cybermen ship, from the cyber ship, and so he kind of toddles off and wanders out into the snow. And obviously, we're going to find out what happens after that, because in Twice Upon a Time. But then when he finally makes it back to the TARDIS, he goes inside. and he kind of stands there at the console, and the controls start moving by themselves. So the TARDIS is like, okay, he's out of it. I've got to do something here, apparently. And the TARDIS kind of like, I don't know if it helps to trigger that first regeneration. It's kind of vague, obviously, but something's going on for some reason. Maybe we'll find out Twice Upon a Time why he was kind of out of it there.
And
so hopefully, kind of maybe Moffat will fill in some continuity story gaps here.
I hope so. It does seem to make the impression to regenerate, he has to be in the TARDIS, because he said we need to hurry back to the TARDIS.
Right.
And I think that's something that they may have wanted to apply and then conveniently forgot it in the future.
Or just the regenerations go easier while while he's in the TARDIS. So that's why he tries to make it back.
That would get you a Doctor Who No prize, Charles.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm.
If anybody gets one, I should get one, right?
Yes, you should.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, it was. I see why, and not only for other timing wise, this was not very dramatic. It wasn't a great send off for the Doctor versus some of the others we've seen.
Right.
But
well, obviously they hadn't even called it regeneration at this point.
Yes, I was going to mention that as well. So yeah, it is significant, and I do understand the.
And this was something totally new. You got to keep in mind, because what show just kind of up and changes their lead character into a completely different actor with a completely different personality. Two
absolutely.
So yeah, sure, okay, they did it on Bewitched, but Darren and the two Darrens were pretty much identical in personality.
Right, and this one they weren't. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, so it's just from a historical standpoint.
Yes,
I think it's it's got a novelty to it because it's historically significant, even if it's not exactly earth-shattering.
And I also think that this leaves you a lot of, I guess not fodder, but a lot of room to explore in this last Moffat Christmas special.
Right.
I think it's perfect timing. I don't know about you, but my DVR automatically caught the BBC on BBC America, preview of the Christmas special. And boy, I pulled it up, and it was the clip that has been on the internet everywhere.
Right.
So I was a little disappointed, hoping for something more, but there is a lot of room, and I'm hoping that we aren't disappointed and I don't think we will be. I think they will add a little bit to the mythos of the first Doctor.
We did know that Ben and Polly are going to be played by different actors, obviously for understandable reasons, because, hey, the story is like over 51 years old now.
Yes.
But, so we're going to get Ben and Polly. Surprisingly, I thought we would just get, when this story was first announced, I thought we were just going to get David Bradley as the first Doctor, but as we knew from the first trailer for the Christmas special, that we get to at least see Polly. And then we found out we're going to get Ben. So I'm kind of curious, how much more we'll get from that.
Yeah,
and what it will help maybe flesh out some things in this story.
And I do know it is very important that Capaldi get his regeneration and he gets time. Similar on a separate podcast we may have discussed where someone was a little upset that Barry and Iris didn't get a wedding by themselves.
Right.
And
if you notice, on The Flash, Iris was upset about that as well.
Yes, she was.
So, Team West Allen here. Come on.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this. I think it's going to be cool, and we will just see what they're trying to do. Right.
Right. Exactly. So, so obviously we want to give Peter Capaldi a great send off, but
yes,
I'm curious how much of the 10th Planet it might kind of help improve a little bit.
yes,
Or just kind of reveal some things that maybe that wasn't in the original story.
I hope so too, Charles.
So that would be nice. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else about this episode before we do best lines of the episode?
No, I enjoyed it. I think mostly because of the Cybermen. I loved the general.
Right.
He was just...
He's a good villain.
Chewing your scenery type of guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really happy.
I'm kind of surprised he didn't have a cigar, because that's all he needed was a cigar to chomp on.
Yeah, so it was really good stuff.
Why, you gold-bricking lazy SOBs?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of, with Jim Neighbors passing as we record this, fairly recent, Sergeant Carter.
Surprise.
Yeah, Sergeant Carter. Just this wonderful things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right.
Yep. All right. So I'll let you go first. Which favorite lines of the story?
I have no favorite lines.
No favorite lines.
I mean, you already mentioned his episode, his line about what he said right before. You mentioned kind of, I don't like your face.
I didn't do the full story, but
yeah.
I didn't do the full.
Yeah, I didn't think that much.
Okay. I've actually got 4, so.
Okay, go for it.
All right, so I'll try and cover for both of us here.
Okay.
First I have is exchange between the Doctor and Ben, where the Doctor says, "Well, you see, Ben, I know what this planet is and what it means to Earth." And Ben says, "What does it mean to Earth?" The Doctor replies, "Well, that pretty soon we should be having visitors." And Ben replies, "Visitors? What, here?" "Well, who do you think's bringing them? Father Christmas on a sled?"
That's great.
So I thought that was good. Next one I have is exchange between Craze, the Cybermen. Yes, the Cybermen have names in this story. The very and only time they have names.
Right.
So Craze has an exchange with the Doctor where he's basically talking about being a Cyberman. And Craze says, "Feelings? I do not understand that word." And the Doctor replies, "Emotions. Love, pride, hate, fear. Have you no emotions, sir?"
Very well.
Which is a very definitive, it's a kind of an iconic Hartnell line.
Yeah.
And then I have an exchange between Polly and one of the Cybermen, where Polly says, "Don't you think of anything except yourselves?" And the Cyberman replies, "We are equipped to survive. We are only interested in survival. Anything else is of no importance. Your deaths will not affect us." And Polly replies, "But I can't make you understand. You're condemning us all to die. Have you no heart?" The Cyberman replies, "No, that is one of the weaknesses that we have removed."
Very well. Very nicely done.
All right. Last one I have is, of course, the Doctor to Ben, which I think should be considered the first Doctor's final words, because his actual final words are kind of lame, as we talked about. So the Doctor says, "What did you say, my boy? It's all over? That's what you said? But it isn't all over. It's far from being all over."
And that is nice. And that should be the final word. So well done, sir.
Yeah. And then at that point, he should have collapsed and then regenerated.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that would have been better.
Mm.
And everybody go "Wait, what just happened?"
What happened? Yeah.
That's the way I would have wrote it.
He dropped the mic. We don't even know what that means.
It's easy to armchair quarterback the story 51 years later.
Absolutely.
So,
yes.
All right. So, do you have a rating for this story?
I do have a rating. I'm going to give it 7.5 companion-made cups of coffee.
Nice.
Yeah,
poor Polly. She gets such crap in this episode.
Yeah, I'm happy.
I feel bad for her.
Yeah, I'm glad we saw this. I appreciate the fact that the significance of this, and overall, there have been classic episodes that I've like, okay, Charles, I just couldn't make it through it, you know. Right. And this one I did enjoy.
Okay, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it at least. I mean, I don't expect it to be your favorite.
Right.
All right. So I give this one 8.5 out of 10. Old school Cyberman headlamps.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Good. So you
probably
mentioned,
like find yourself in a snowstorm really easily because hey, you're on the South Pole, right? So.
By the way, really beautiful that they were on a snowy, they were on the South Pole, which working through works in perfect for the Christmas special.
Doesn't it?
That was really nice.
It's almost like this is the first Doctor Christmas special, this story.
Yes, it kind of feels that way. I agree.
Well, remember, it's December 1986, so it could have been close to Christmas.
Absolutely.
When this story took place. So this is, let's just treat this as, I know there was an actual Christmas episode for Hartnell, The Feast of Stephen, which was part of, I can't remember the actual story. I think it was the Daleks' Master Plan.
Okay.
And, which was like episode, one of the episodes, like episode 5 or 7 or something like that. But this one might as well be a Christmas special. It could
Absolutely.
Be. It could be. I mean, BBC America could air it as a Christmas special. I don't think anybody that didn't know differently would think otherwise. So.
Exactly. So,
all right.
Charles, feedback or reverse the polarity first?
I'll do whatever you want to do.
Let's do reverse the polarity.
All right. I'll try and do this quick because I know we have a lot of feedback, so I want to hurry up and get to that.
Absolutely.
So I'll try to get through this really quick. So I'm going to reverse the polarity. Do you have a reverse the polarity first and foremost to the modern era? If not, I've got one.
The only, there is the Next Doctor, which features David Morrissey. Who we would have liked to see as the Master or the Doctor. He plays the kind of Victorian age Doctor.
Yeah, Jackson Lake.
And that is...
And that's a good choice because, there's snow, it's Christmas special, and there's Cybermen.
Yes.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, so I thought of that one because it's one of my favorite Christmas specials.
Okay, that's cool. Well, I chose for my reverse the polarity. I chose Rise of the Cybermen: The Age of Steel.
Ah, nice.
So this is the 5th and 6th episodes from Series 2 in 2006, which featured the very first modern appearance of the Cybermen.
Nice.
So I thought I'd go from the original appearance of the Cybermen back in the original series to the first modern appearance. Now, these Cybermen are obviously a little different because in this story we have the 10th Doctor, Rose, and Mickey. They end up, because the Doctor kind of like forgets to tell Mickey to stop holding a lever down on the TARDIS console. They end up in an alternate universe, an alternate Earth, essentially. And there, we're introduced to the Cybermen. But they're not from Mondas in this incarnation. And it turns out that they're essentially manufactured on Earth by this company called Cybus Industries, which is headed by a guy named John Lumick. And Lumick has been conducting all these experiments and turning people into cyborgs, like homeless people into cyborgs. He's picking them off the street and experimenting. And Rose's father, Pete, is who's alive on this Earth is kind of indirectly involved in this, and but of course things go quickly to hell. The Cybermen they crash this one party where at Pete and Jackie's house, because in this incarnation they're rich, and that the Cybermen are going to start essentially they start converting people. They start building up their operation, and it's up to the Doctor, Rose, Mickey, and this alternate Mickey named Ricky, and for they're working together to try to take out this group of Cybermen before it really gets going. Lumic ends up getting converted into a cyber controller, and eventually it all boils down to this code that will essentially cause an inhibitor signal to drop, and that gets plugged in. The conversion facility goes up in flames, kaboom, and Lumic ends up falling to his death after being converted into a Cyberman. And so then, of course, Mickey stays behind on the alternate Earth to replace Ricky, his doppelganger, but Rose and the 10th Doctor end up going back home to their main universe. The end.
Absolutely, yes.
So, but
good choice.
But obviously this is a big deal because, hey, it's the first time the Cybermen had appeared in the modern era. It wasn't the Mondasian Cybermen like a lot of us old school fans liked, but obviously eventually we got them, thankfully. So,
yes, we did.
So just kind of be patient, but just kind of appreciate this new take on the Cybermen. It's very interesting, and then it was definitely a very fresh approach, considering, and a more gruesome approach than a lot of the Cybermen stories in the past.
Yes, very. And they're very, the modern era. They are very, very
menacing.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Well, I mean, it's just the idea that, hey, they'll just chop off your body parts and stick on cybernetic, implants and whatnot, and basically wipe away your humanity is pretty horrific. And it's kind of something they touched on in the original series, because we did have cyber conversion in the original series. But here, obviously, in the modern era, it's much more gruesome.
Absolutely.
Because you can get away with that.
Yes.
In modern storytelling than you could back in the day. All right, so we do have some feedback, and we have 4 people writing in this week.
Yes.
So I'll get to this right away.
Well, I have Fred's and Holly's in front of me.
Well, I have David K. Proctor's and Paul Beck's from Australia.
Okay.
So do you want to do Holly and Fred's, and I'll do David and Paul's?
That sounds good.
Okay, since that seems like the fair way to do it. So,
I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
Holly from Wisconsin.
Yep.
Hey, Charles and Jesse. I have to say this was an interesting story. For it being the introduction of the Cybermen, even if they don't look like the ones we have today with all the upgrades, they are still a group you don't want to mess with. I'm also glad that they were able to restore the story with some animation. Out of the animated Doctor Who episodes I've seen, the animation is good. The only one that I have quibbles with on the animation is the Reign of Terror.
Which is a William Hartnell story.
Yeah, just something with the way the eyes were done just kind of took away from that story. Back to the one at hand, the drama was there, and both Ben and Polly could tell something was up with the Doctor. I could see both points of view about trying to take out the Cybermen or protect the Earth. Talk about being in a rock and a hard place. The Cybermen rank up there as one of my favorite Doctor Who baddies. Well, I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Holly, as always, thank you so much for your feedback. And Charles, we didn't talk about the animation. I thought the animation was really well done. Yeah. It did not bother me at all.
Well, I mean, I mentioned the animation that I thought it was better than a lot of the various previous animations.
Yeah.
And I really liked the animation of this story. I thought, it's among the best, and it's come the closest to actually recreating the episode, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really liked it, and so I'm glad she brought it up. Cool. Do you want to read?
Yeah. I'll read David K. Proctor's, who wrote in. He's essentially, David is writing in response to something we brought up in a previous episode. David writes, "I am by no means the expert you are at remembering all the bits of Doctor Who." Oh, you're very generous, David. You asked a question about whether or not the Time Lords recognize each other after regenerations. I remember that. So he points out that the Sixth Doctor met a Time Lord, and he recognized the Time Lord, but the Time Lord did not recognize the Doctor. The one of the Doctor states, "I can always tell," but no one recognizes the Master at the end of time. But in the defense of that, he was disguised as a human. So, I guess what David is saying here is that sometimes it recognizes, sometimes he doesn't.
So here's my shot for a no prize.
Yes.
Is if you really take time,
right,
and look in the other person's eyes and study them, I think then you recognize them. But I don't think as a Gallifreyan you go around, or as a Time Lord, looking at everyone's face with that kind of in depth, just in case, because you've seen that when River met the the Capaldi's Doctor. Once she looked at him and really looked at him, then she recognized. And in the clip about this Christmas special, they look at each other, and yes, he does cheat and show a little regeneration.
Right.
But I think it was so. That's my theory, is that just casually they don't see it, but when they look at it, when they look in my eyes, kind of, they recognize that. They recognize each other.
Yeah, well, Lori and I had just watched Time Crash, the mini episode that takes place before Voyage of the Damned, because we were watching Voyage of the Damned, and I always insist on watching Time Crash because it leads into it. So, so in that story, the Fifth Doctor does not figure out the 10th Doctor. Like, he doesn't recognize the 10th Doctor. But, of course, the 10th Doctor recognizes him because it's a past incarnation.
Right.
So, there's a lot of that going on. And I think probably some of that is because when doctors meet each other, it all gets a bit timey-wimey.
Yes.
And maybe at first they don't recognize each other. Like in The Day of the Doctor, the War Doctor didn't recognize that the 10th and 11th Doctors were his future selves.
Exactly.
So let's just chalk that the Doctors not recognizing each other up to at least that maybe because when the Doctors are brought across their timelines, that it keeps them from recognizing each other right off the bat.
Or also the Doctor is self-centered and only thinks of himself, no matter what version of the Doctor, right?
There is that. So
yes.
I'm trying to be uplifting here. I'm trying to be more positive.
I'm being positive too.
But seriously, there is some of that. That's a fair argument as far as I'm concerned. Okay.
All right. Fred Firestein.
Or Stein. Is it Fred Firestein?
Stein?
I think it's Fred.
Let's Steen. Tell us. Frockenstein. Hey, Charles and Jesse. I think this week you're supposed to talk about the 10th planet on the podcast.
Well, you are correct, sir.
Well, it seems that just in time, I was able to attend a group event at a local library where we watched the 10th planet.
That's pretty awesome.
This is a monthly gathering organized by longtime Doctor Who podcaster and
Long Island Who.
Yeah, organizer Ken Deep.
Whom I'm familiar with a little bit online. I think we follow each other on Facebook.
Okay. It was fun to see the DVD version of this story. including the animated reconstruction of the last part. What did I think of this story? It was an early example of what become the pretty typical in Doctor Who. The Doctor and companions show up out of nowhere. The local people, in this case a NASA base in Antarctica, don't trust them because why would they? Aliens show up, as they always do at a base in Antarctica.
The seeds of doom, anybody.
Yeah. The Doctor and his companions save the day, and then, what's this? The Doctor becomes ill and has to lie down for the last part of the story. Then his body starts to glow. What could be happening? Tune in next time. Anyway, I had fun watching with about a dozen people. I laughed when Polly literally offered to make coffee because she had nothing else to do. The introduction of the Cybermen and the start of the first regeneration make this a landmark story for sure. Thanks for an always entertaining podcast, Fred.
Thank you,
Fred.
Thank you,
appreciate
Fred.
that.
Yep, we do. Fred's a pretty loyal follower of Next Stop Everywhere. He's very active on our Facebook account, on their Twitters. So cheers to you, Fred. We definitely appreciate you and everybody like you, including, obviously, our other 3 feedback writers in this week. Last person to write in this week, Paul from Australia, Paul Beck.
Yay.
So, yay. Who, if you remember now, I posted the photo that Paul was kind enough to send us on our Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who Podcast Facebook page. So you want to check that out if you want to see Paul and his lovely wife, Linda with a Y. So cheers to you both, and who were celebrating 100 episodes of Next Stop Everywhere. So yay. So Paul writes in, "Hi Charles and Jesse. I know I should like these episodes more than I do with the introduction of the Cybermen and what would be the first regeneration of the Doctor. But for me, the story has some holes in it." Understandable. "I find the notion of the Earth having a sister planet intriguing, but it has the same continents as our world." Well, they were upside down, Paul. Come on. Even though there's no upside down in space, but, hey. So the fact that it was drawing energy from Earth till it exploded, question mark. Okay. Suspension of belief working overtime. Anyway, these quibbles aside, as I always like a base under siege story, as do I. The introduction of the Cybermen is great. They look so menacing, walking so unsteady through the snow. The early Cybermen costume looks so unconvincing, but they work so well, aside from the weird voices, he puts in parentheses. You don't like the sing-song? That's okay. They got rid of it. It's such a shame that the 4th episode is still missing. Thank goodness for animated reconstruction. I know today we take the notion of regeneration for granted, but back then it must have been shocking to have a lead in a show become another actor. I totally agree. That was one of the points I brought up. Yep. Overall, I recognize the importance of these episodes, and I just wish this story had been worked on more. I agree with that. I suppose it must have been hard to have to write a story where Bill was not in part of it, and the story had to be carried by Ben and Polly. Hope you guys are good. Best wishes as always, Paul. P.S. Has Jesse seen Colin Baker's Attack of the Cybermen? We have not reviewed that here, so I'm guessing you haven't. That's okay. Colin Baker's second story, his only face-off against the Cybermen. But it's a pretty interesting Cyberman story, and it does have a lot of that Cyberman conversion horror to it.
Okay.
That I talked about earlier. So that might be one we want to talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere.
All right, that sounds good.
Maybe in 2018.
Absolutely.
Because we got a whole year to fill. Because we got to get till September, kids.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. All right.
But there might be another little podcast that we may keep busy doing.
Well, there's that. But there's Doctor Who people. They want to talk about Doctor Who. Don't worry.
I understand.
We got your back, people. We got you covered. We're going to talk
Absolutely.
about... we've had 54 years of Doctor Who. So I'm pretty sure we can find something to talk about.
Absolutely.
So don't worry, we got you covered.
Good.
And we'll help you fill in that gap. All right. So next time at Next Everywhere. Oh, go ahead.
Yes. No, go ahead. Tell us what we're going to talk about next. And then I want to know how other people can join the cool kids giving us feedback.
Yeah. So next time at Next Stop Everywhere, obviously we're going to talk about the Christmas special, Twice Upon a Time. And of course, this is the final Peter Capaldi story. Probably the last time we're going to see Pearl Mackie as Bill. Sadly, hopefully they'll come back for like a reunion special or something, because I dig the 12th Doctor and Bill. I think they're
I do too.
I think they're a great pairing. I don't think we're going to get Nardole in this story, so I think
I was going to ask about that.
I think we've seen the last of Nardole unless we get a little cameo or something. Kind of wondering if we're going to get a cameo of Clara as well, like we did with Karen Gillan as Amy.
Could be.
In Matt Smith's final story.
Yes.
I think it's be something to look out for at the very least. And obviously it's the last story with Stephen Moffat as showrunner. So
yes.
The end of an era. I know a lot of people are looking forward to Moffat leaving. But so we'll see what that does to the show, to Doctor Who, with Chris Chibnall taking over as showrunners. But for right now, 7 days from now, as far as we're concerned, and we'll be talking about Twice Upon a Time. So stay tuned, kids. And,
yes, indeed.
We're looking forward to talking about that with you. Obviously, I think we're going to have a lot to talk about that time.
I totally agree.
So everybody send in your thoughts about what you think about Peter Capaldi's final story. And if you'd like to do that, just like Jesse said, the cool kids. So if you want to be like David and Holly and Paul and Fred, you want to email us at nextstopeverywhere.smg, don't forget the SMG, at gmail.com. That stands for Southgate Media Group, in case you're wondering. Or you can reach us on our Facebook page, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Please like us and follow us there. We would definitely appreciate that. And you can follow us on the Twitter machine at NextStopSMG on the Twitter machine. We definitely appreciate that as well. And as far as that, we're also on iTunes. So please go there and rate us and let us know what you think about that. Leave some feedback, because that helps people find our show. And we can't do that without you. We need your help to kind of spread the word, because we can only do so much. We just try to put on a good show and hope that everybody enjoys it. So hopefully you do. And if you do, please tell your friends about us. We would love that.
Absolutely. The more the merrier.
Yep. And Jesse, where can they reach you on the interwebs?
Well, I can be reached at Jesse Jackson DFW, on Twitter. I can be heard discussing music on Set Listing Bruce here on this podcast. And so I am on Facebook as well, Jesse Jackson, and Instagram, Jesse Jackson. You can find me. Charles, how about you?
Of course, I'm on the Twitter machine at Charles Skaggs, or on the Instagram at Charles Skaggs. Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs. And Google Plus, right? Crazy Kids in the Google Plus. Shout out to Karen. And then, of course, my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. Where I talk about Next Stop Everywhere and Doctor Who and all kinds of comic book and sci-fi goodness. And may have some news about our upcoming podcast that we've been teasing forever.
There was a picture of a duo, a brother and sister duo, just recently that looked pretty cool.
Oh, they're not brother and sister.
Oh, that's right. They're not on this one.
No, because Don Granger is not...
Don.
Yep.
It's not Don.
Yeah, it was Hank Hall and Don Granger. So, yeah, just Hawk and Dove. But,
yes.
But they're not related.
Okay.
So, not like Hawk and the original Dove, Don Hall, were brothers.
Yes.
So I'm sure that's what you're thinking. So,
Yes, exactly.
but yeah, something a little relating to that. So stay tuned. That's all we're going to tease for now. But don't worry. Hopefully, it won't be too much longer. And
Yes,
if you're a comics geek or a TV fan, I think you'll enjoy our little project that we've cooking up.
absolutely. So
And of course,
then,
I just want to mention real quick,
yeah,
my other two podcasts that I do for Southgate Media, the Phantom Zone podcast that I do with Karen Lindsay, friend of the show, and where we talk about comic books on television, and the Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where we talk about Twin Peaks and all the related goodness. So please check those out as well. I would personally definitely appreciate it, and I know Jesse would appreciate you checking out his podcasts as well.
absolutely. So Charles, we will not talk till after Christmas.
Right.
So I want to say Merry Christmas to you,
Right.
and the beautiful Lori,
Thank you.
and your wonderful parents, and to all our listeners. I hope whether you celebrate Christmas or not, that day is a day filled with a lot of good food, a lot of laughter, and a lot of love.
And a lot of Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
But hey, if you don't celebrate Christmas, if you celebrate Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or what have you,
Yes.
We definitely wish all of you out there a very happy holidays to you at home, in the words of William Hartnell. So we hope you guys have a great new year, and we will be back right before the new year to discuss Twice Upon a Time. So come on back for episode 102. And do we have a quote leading us out, Jesse?
We do. Do you know why people get together at Christmas? Because every time they do, it might be the last time. Every Christmas is last Christmas. And this is ours. This is a bonus. This is extra. Now it's time to wake up. My hope is this is not our last Christmas, but you never know if it might be. So make it a good one, guys.
Yes. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Bye, everyone.
Yay! Yay!